It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans, and I will be your host this morning. We are in our third segment of 4. And so far we've looked at the insanity of an Interpol database of stolen passports that covers the globe, which isn't open to the airlines. I mean, how absurdly ridiculous, right? So you keep a database of passports that are stolen, but only government gets to see it. Another secret database. I'm so tired of the word secret, I want to gag. And the second topic, we talked about the House bill to stop the war on coal. And I outlined some reasons why all of it is really just so much ridiculous stupidity. I mean, it is national suicide, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing more, nothing less. This topic, we're going to be talking about Snowden and his comment that there are, quote, many other spy programs that remain secret. You see, what we've seen is only the tip of the iceberg that Snowden is aware of. And if you think about it, the problem is that really what we have in our country today is not a surveillance state for the benefit of your protection. It's a surveillance state for the demise of the Bill of Rights, the demise of your ability to self-determine, self-govern, to be self-reliant, self-sufficient. Government doesn't want that. They want you dependent, compliant, and malleable. He was speaking to the European Parliament, by video, of course, because he can't leave Russia. Go figure, right? I know Putin's playing the game against Obama with the Snowden thing, but isn't it ironic that a guy has to run from the land of the free and the home of the brave to Russia to be protected from the insane? Hussein. Well, same thing. But what his point was to the EU, as if they're any paragons of virtue, was that he's not going to try to make a timetable of how and where and under what circumstances and which story these journalists expose. In other words, he's going to let them decide what to report and in what order and how and what have you. There are many other undisclosed programs that would impact EU citizens' rights, he said. But I will leave the public interest determinations as to which of these may be safely disclosed to responsible journalists in coordination with government stakeholders. Now, the truth of the matter is that the real purpose behind, or the real driver behind media, is that they're supposed to be a watchdog on our behalf, kind of keeping an eye on things because they have resources and the ability to, and they make a living at it, and they have the ability and the wherewithal to go in and find out what's really happening and why, and then tell us about it so that we can react appropriately and call up our our representatives in Congress and put forth our own view and redress our grievances with our government. Unfortunately, the media, for the most part, has betrayed that obligation. They've betrayed that sacred trust. And the truth is that with the programs we know about, we should be terrified. And that's only the ones we know about, folks. We're not, let's understand something here. We know about only a handful of what Snowden has. And what we know from those groups is that from not those groups, but from those revelations we've already seen, is that nothing good can come from all of this surveillance. In fact, nothing good has come from it. The truth is that, and I don't know if you saw it or not the other day, I think it was Thursday or Friday, I posted up on America's Voice and our Facebook and YouTube pages or whatever, an article about how a woman has filed a lawsuit because Immigrations and Customs was reading her email, and when she met this guy that came over here as an immigrant from Greece, and he had an appropriate visa that allowed him to stay here for 10 years, they accused her of, surreptitiously trying to marry the guy or something so that he would have easy, immigration status or something. But the point was, what they used to question her was information that they could only have gotten from her email. And they admitted to her that they'd read her email. So all of their protestations to the contrary, that they're not reading our email, is a lie. And at the very, very least, they're storing it so that they can read it when they have a reason to look for anyone or at anyone. And that's exactly my point. This isn't about keeping you safe. This is about controlling you and keeping an eye on those people that threaten them. That's what it's really about. Snowden went on to tell the EU, I don't want to outpace the efforts of journalists here, but I can confirm that all documents reported thus far are authentic and unmodified, meaning the alleged operations against Belgacom, SWIFT, the EU as an institution, the United Nations, UNICEF, and others based on documents I provided have actually occurred. I expect similar operations will be revealed in the future that affect many more ordinary citizens. Now, what that should tell you, and you should listen to it again if you need to, but what that should tell you is that he's not trying to jump ahead of the game here and be a spoiler alert kind of thing. Frankly, I wish he would. I wish he'd just do a dump, and we'd get it out there so that we could page through it, wade through it, and make determinations about it. Now, I get it. There may be some small percentage of things in there that we really don't want completely exposed. And I don't know who's responsible for determining that. I mean, realistically, I can't say who should be. What I can say is that we have gone so far over the boundary of what can and shouldn't be done here that at this stage in the game, we're entitled to know exactly how far down the path of depravity and control our government has taken us. The proof is that, and he exposes it here in this discussion, he says that Abdul Muttalib, the underwear bomber, was allowed to board a plane traveling from Europe to the United States in 2009. The 290 persons on board were not saved by mass surveillance, but by his own incompetence when he failed to detonate the device. This is Snowden speaking now. While even Muttalib's own father warned the U.S. government he was dangerous in November of 2009, our resources were tied up monitoring online games and tapping German ministers. That extraordinary tip-off didn't get Muttalib a dedicated U.S. investigator. All we gave him was a U.S. visa. And he's right. See, the truth is that, and I jump back to our first story this morning. Interpol has a massive database of all the stolen passports in the world. But the information isn't shared with those people who need it. The airline. Duh. Because they're not really interested in whether or not a bomber gets on board an airplane. Don't you get it? They look at all of us as criminals. Some of us just haven't been caught yet. Snowden went on and said, nor did the U.S. government's comprehensive monitoring of Americans at home stop the Boston bombers. Despite the Russians specifically warning us about Tsarnaev, the FBI couldn't do more than a cursory investigation. Although they did plenty of worthless computer-based searching and failed to discover the plot in which 264 people were injured and 3 died. The resources that could have paid for a real investigation had been spent on monitoring the calls of everyone in America. See, if this was really about keeping you safe, it would work. But it's not about keeping you safe. It's about keeping an eye on you so that if you raise your head above the level of the other sheep and you bleat out in a way in which you are offensive or threatening, then they know where you are and who you are. The truth is, and I'll say it until y'all hear it enough that you say, please don't say it again because we get it. This isn't about keeping you safe. It's about keeping you controlled and monitored. The truth is, they're frightened of you. Not you, but you with a collection of other Americans who say, enough's enough. You and a collection of other Americans who say, I can't take any more. I'm not going to be dragged over the edge of the bridge by a small group of suicidal malcontents who have gained control of our government. Is the world a dangerous place? It most assuredly is. But the reality is that you have a greater chance of being killed by your own government than you do of being killed by some guy with underwear packed with explosives. you have a far greater chance of being killed by police officers in your own hometown than you do of being on an airplane or a train or a bus or a building that's blown up or detonated, or being in a subway filled with some poisonous whatever. I'm not suggesting that there aren't real threats out there. I'm telling you that the government doesn't care about those real threats because they consider you to be a greater threat to them. See, they're already not worried about the guy with the underwear and the explosives packed in his rear end. They don't care about that guy. And they're safe from him because they don't fly in the same airplane you do. They don't have to ride in the same train or the same bus you do. They're already safe from him. They're not worried about him. Not from their own perspective. They're not worried about the guy in the Boston bombing who's got a backpack and a pressure cooker. Why? Because if they wanted to attend and watch the marathon, they would have a position and a place to watch from that was safe and secure, with a phalanx of bodyguards and security people around them. When they board a plane, it's a private or military or chartered plane. They don't ride with us. And so they don't fear these people. They don't fear these people for you either. They just use those people as an excuse to abuse you. This isn't just a United States problem, by the way. It's a global effort because all of these people in government, at least in the upper echelons, listen, there's a lot of minion ants in the nest or the hive or whatever you want to call it that aren't aware of the ultimate plan. They're just not privy to it. But they continue to march blindly with that leaf or the crumb or whatever it is and do their part to achieve it. They just don't know what the overall picture. They're compartmentalized. They're separated. It's like a group who's building a nuclear weapon, but the parts are built in different locations so that no one knows quite what they're building. Because you never see enough of the big picture to grasp it all. But those people who are at the top, who are in a position of authority, who do know what this is all about, recognize it for exactly what it is. And this is an organization of a small percentage of individuals in an oligarchic fashion at the top who seek a world government with two levels of citizenry. One, our friends, our benefactors, and the ultra wealthy who make us up. And two, everybody else. And the only time that they are concerned about the everybody else is when the everybody else becomes a threat to their position, or they rise up. If all of this surveillance, if all of this monitoring was really about you and keeping you safe, it would work. But by their own admission, they've missed every cue. investigation after investigation after investigation has shown that the fusion centers do nothing except soak up revenue. That all this monitoring has not resulted in any terroristic actions being prohibited. Well, if we do it long enough and hard enough, we'll eventually get one. Tell that to the 3 people who are dead from the Boston guy. Or the 236 that are missing a limb. It ain't about you. It's all about them. It ain't about you. You only come into the picture when you are a threat to them. And this surveillance system is not intended to protect you. It is intended to protect them from you. We're going to take a break. You're listening to America's Voice Now.